I've always heard people say, "You're never truly ready to be a parent." I used to roll my eyes at that. I thought it was just something people said when they didn't plan well enough. I had a career, a stable home, a solid relationship. If anyone could be ready, I thought it would be me. Turns out I was wrong. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I'd just gotten home from work, loosened my tie, and was scrolling through emails when my wife, Emily, walked in. She looked different, nervous, almost. "Can we talk?" she asked. I closed my laptop. "Of course. What's going on?" She sat down next to me, took my hand, and placed a small white stick in my palm. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. Then my eyes caught the faint blue lines. Positive. My heart stopped, then started again, pounding faster than I thought possible. "We're having a baby?" I asked, my voice somewhere between a whisper and a gasp. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. I pulled her into my arms, holding her like the world might disappear if I let go. In that moment, it was pure joy, but as the evening went on, reality started to creep in. Questions flooded my mind. Am I ready? Will I be a good father? What if I make the same mistakes my dad made? That night, I barely slept. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about my own childhood. My father was there, but not really there. He provided, yes, but he was always distant, always tired, always somewhere else in his mind. I promised myself I wouldn't be like that, but now, with the weight of fatherhood pressing down on me, I wondered if I even knew how to be different. Emily was already making lists in her head. She's a planner like that. Baby names, nursery ideas, doctor appointments. I admired how calm she seemed, how ready. Meanwhile, I was quietly panicking, but mixed in with that fear was something else. A feeling I couldn't quite name. Hope, because as much as I was terrified, I also knew this was the start of something that would change my life forever. And deep down, I wanted to be worthy of it. The first few days after Emily told me the news felt surreal. Every morning I'd wake up and remind myself, this is real. I'm going to be a father. And every time, the weight of it hit me all over again. Emily, of course, dove straight into preparation mode. Within a week, she had booked our first prenatal appointment, researched vitamins, and started a spreadsheet for baby expenses. She even printed out a checklist titled, "Things New Parents Need." That was so long it made my head spin. I, on the other hand, didn't know where to start. I wasn't afraid of hard work. My job had trained me to handle pressure. But this wasn't a project with a clear manual or a deadline I could control. This was life. One Saturday, Emily suggested we take a prenatal class together. I wasn't thrilled about spending my weekend sitting in a room full of strangers talking about diapers and contractions, but I went anyway. The class turned out to be nothing like I expected. The instructor, a woman named Clara, spoke with the kind of warmth that instantly put people at ease. She explained the stages of labor, breathing techniques, and even how to swaddle a baby. I remember holding that practice doll, its tiny plastic head wobbling in my hands, and realizing just how fragile real life would be. Halfway through the class, Clara asked everyone to share their biggest fear about becoming a parent. People said things like not having enough money or losing sleep. When it was my turn, I hesitated, then blurted out the truth. I'm afraid I won't know how to be the dad my kid needs. The room was quiet for a moment, and then an older father sitting across from me smiled gently. You learn, he said. You mess up. You try again, and you keep showing up. That's how you become the dad they need. Something about that stuck with me. Around this time, our families started getting more involved. My mom began dropping by with homemade meals for Emily and the baby. My sister called me with parenting tips she'd learned from raising her 2 boys. Even my dad, who wasn't the most emotionally expressive man, called one evening and said, "You're going to do fine, son." Coming from him, that meant more than I could explain. I started to realize that this wasn't something Emily and I had to go through alone. People wanted to help. They wanted to be part of this journey. And maybe, just maybe, I was starting to feel ready. Not because I suddenly had all the answers, but because I wasn't facing the unknown on my own anymore. It was 2 weeks before the due date when Emily woke me up in the middle of the night. "Jack," she whispered, her voice shaky, "I think it's time." I jolted upright, adrenaline instantly flooding my veins. We'd rehearsed this moment. The hospital bag was packed. The car had a full tank of gas. But in reality, all those plans dissolved into chaos. I was running around the house, grabbing random things, while Emily calmly reminded me we didn't need the coffee maker. The drive to the hospital felt like it lasted forever and no time at all. The streets were empty, the city sleeping while our lives were about to change completely. Once we got there, everything blurred. Nurses checked Emily in, monitors beeped, and doctors came and went. I held her hand through each contraction, whispering encouragements that sounded more desperate than reassuring. Hours passed. The clock on the wall became my enemy. I watched it tick, minute by minute, while Emily fought through waves of pain that left me feeling helpless. At one point, during the early hours of the morning, I stepped into the hallway just to breathe. My mom had texted hours earlier, "You've got this. We're all here for you." It was a small message, but it grounded me. Back in the room, Emily's grip on my hand tightened. "I can't do this anymore," she gasped. "You can," I told her. "You're stronger than anyone I know." Then came the final push. The room was a flurry of movement, nurses giving instructions, the doctor's voice steady but urgent, Emily pushing with every ounce of strength she had left. And then suddenly it happened. A cry, loud, raw, full of life. The doctor placed this tiny, warm, wrinkled human onto Emily's chest. I stared at our baby, our son, and felt something inside me shift. The fear, the uncertainty, the doubts. They didn't vanish, but they were drowned out by something much stronger. Love. Not the kind you read about in books or see in movies. This was deeper, fierce, the kind that makes you want to protect someone with your whole being. I leaned over, kissed Emily's forehead, and whispered, "You did it." But what I really meant was, we did it. We're a family now. The first week at home with our son felt like stepping into a completely different world. One where day and night blurred into each other, and every decision felt critical. Sleep became a luxury I could barely remember. Emily and I took turns waking up for feedings, though in truth, she bore the heavier load. I tried to help wherever I could, changing diapers, rocking the baby back to sleep, making sure Emily had water and something to eat. But nothing prepared me for the emotional whiplash of those early days. There were moments when I'd just stare at our son, amazed at how perfect he was. His tiny fingers curling around mine, the way he'd make these soft little noises while sleeping. And then there were moments when the crying wouldn't stop. My eyes burned from exhaustion, and I wondered if I was cut out for this at all. This is where family became my anchor. My mom started coming over almost every afternoon, cooking enough food for days, so Emily and I wouldn't have to think about meals. My sister brought over baby clothes her boys had outgrown, along with a few much-needed parenting hacks. Even my dad, who had never been the most hands-on type, showed up one Saturday morning and offered to watch the baby so Emily and I could take a nap. I don't think I've ever appreciated him more than in that moment. One evening, I was struggling to calm our son down. I'd tried rocking, singing, even walking in circles around the living room. Nothing worked. My brother, who had stopped by to drop off some groceries, asked if he could try. He held the baby in a way I hadn't seen before, head resting in the crook of his arm, body slightly tilted, and within minutes, the crying stopped. Babies like to feel secure, he said with a grin, like they're still in the womb. It was such a simple thing, but it made me realize that I didn't have to figure everything out alone. There was a whole network of people ready to help, teach, and share what they knew. Slowly, I started to feel more confident, not because I had mastered fatherhood, far from it, but because I was learning that mistakes didn't make me a bad dad. They made me human, and as long as I kept showing up, kept trying, I was on the right path. It was a quiet Sunday morning, about 3 weeks after we'd brought our son home. The chaos of the early days had softened into a kind of organized mess, bottles drying on the counter, diapers stacked in the corner, the baby monitor always humming softly in the background. Emily had finally fallen asleep after an all-night feeding marathon, so I took the baby into the living room to give her a few hours of rest. The sunlight was spilling in through the curtains, painting the room in a warm golden glow. I sat down in the armchair, holding him against my chest. He was so small. His entire body fit perfectly in the space between my chin and my heart. I could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing, the tiny rise and fall that told me he felt safe. That's when it happened. I looked down at him, and suddenly everything clicked. All the fear I'd carried, about failing, about not knowing how to be a father, it was still there, but it didn't matter in the way it used to, because I realized something simple but powerful. Being a good dad isn't about having all the answers. It's about being present, about showing up every single day, no matter how tired, no matter how unsure you feel. And in that moment, I also saw my family differently. I thought about my mom bringing meals without being asked, my dad awkwardly but earnestly offering to babysit, my siblings stepping in with advice and help. It hit me that this was what family was all about. Not perfection, not grand gestures, but the quiet, consistent presence in each other's lives. I kissed the top of my son's head and whispered, "You're never going to be alone, kid. I promise." I didn't say it out loud, but it was a promise to myself too, that I would be the kind of father who showed up, that I would carry forward the best parts of my family's love and leave behind the parts that hurt. That morning, as the world outside went on with its usual rush, I sat in that chair holding my son and felt a peace I hadn't known in years. I wasn't just someone's son anymore. I was someone's dad, and that changed everything. Looking back now, I realize that the birth of my son didn't just make me a father. It reshaped my understanding of what family truly means. Before all of this, I thought family was just about being related by blood. I thought it was something that existed by default, like a name you inherit or a holiday tradition you're born into. But I've learned it's so much more than that. Family is the people who show up, not just in the big, dramatic moments, but in the quiet, exhausting, everyday ones. It's my mom showing up with a casserole when she knows we've been too tired to cook. It's my dad calling just to ask how the baby's doing, even if he's never been great with words. It's my sister and brother stepping in without hesitation when they see we need help, offering wisdom and comfort in equal measure. Family is the safety net you don't always notice until you're falling. When Emily and I were in the delivery room, it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of us and the baby we were about to meet. But now I see that we were never alone. There was this invisible circle of people around us, cheering for us, praying for us, ready to catch us when we stumbled. And it's not just about receiving that support. It's about giving it back. I think about the day my son will grow up and face his own challenges. I want him to know, without a doubt, that he has a family that will stand with him through anything. I want him to learn, by watching us, that showing up for the people you love is one of the most important things you can do in life. If there's one thing I've taken from this journey, it's that love and responsibility aren't separate things. They're the same. Caring for someone means being there, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard. Especially then, So why does family matter? Because in a world that can be unpredictable and overwhelming, family is the one place where you can fall apart and still be loved. It's the anchor that keeps you steady in the storms, and the wind that pushes you forward when you're too tired to move. And now, as I hold my son and look toward the future, I know one thing for sure. I will spend the rest of my life making sure he feels that same unshakable love, the kind I've been lucky enough to have.